Hi, I'm Gregor Friday. Let's make some music.
Let's take a look under the hood of my song, F-Hein. So this one is very Bon Jovi-esque. What I was going for was, well, just simply something 80s rock. Let's take a look at what I did. I've got these guitars here. They're running through the Slate THU amp sim. So a DoD 250 clone into a JCM 900 clone on the left side. Then the right side is a TS9 style into a vintage Marshall. So I like to use different guitar tones left and right. There's arguments to be made for using the same guitar tone or different tones. I generally like to use different tones. It sounds a bit wider, sounds a bit more vintage, sounds like two guitarists. I've used different guitars as well. So one side sounds like this. And the other side sounds like this. Different enough. So the idea for the song started with this Easy Keys patch. I was looking for some inspiration and I came across this sound. I heard that and I was like, okay, this is begging for some 80s cock rock. So it's String Machine with this Selena octave split. I don't know if that's something that they used. Could also be a bit Van Halen-y. But in any case, it said Bon Jovi to me, so I went for a Bon Jovi type thing. So being a guitarist, E minor is a great key to play in. Really easy. You get a big fat low E note. You've got some open strings in case you fluff something. It's really easy to play in. So went with E minor as the key. So the first chord progression at the start is this C, D, E minor progression. C for half a bar, D for 4 beats, and E minor for 2 beats. Repeats again. And then to create a turnaround, we've got C for 2, D for 4, E for 2, and then holding on C. So the E minor being the root, the C major is then the 6th, the D is the 7th degree of the scale. It's all diatonic. So that sounds like this. It's like, don't bore us, get to the chorus. That's what I wanted to start with. Wanted it to come in like a jackhammer with this drum fill. And a big slide on the guitar. Stadium rock. Got big reverb on the drums. Drum room 2. Let's look at the bass real quick. So bass I've got split onto 2 tracks. One is my main bass tone. Your typical sort of Ampeg style sound, lots of pick attack. And on this second track, I've got a different sound. That's to fill out the bottom end. Usually the second track for me, the first track would be a little bit more mellow and the second track would be a bit distorted. But being that it's distortion on bass is something that became bigger in the 90s and definitely 2000s, to keep it authentically 80s as I could, being a modern guy and using modern tools, I decided to not distort the bass too much. So on the bus, I've got C1 from Waves. In the classic compressor mode, doing about 5 dBs of gain reduction. I've got a few frequencies that I've notched out. So you can hear one of them is going whoa, 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 and the other one just makes it really woolly and takes up too much space. All right, let's move on to leads. So we've got a lead line running through this start part. Super 80s. You don't hear so many guitar solos in poppy style music anymore, especially not this kind of like rip-roaring hair metal stuff. So it took me quite a few goes, because I'm not writing before I sit down. I sit down, I start recording, and I'm writing as I'm going. It's all stream of consciousness. So it took me 11 and a half goes to come up with an idea and get it down in a way that I could play it. And this is what it sounded like. So you might notice at the end, a second lead guitar comes in, and that's playing a harmony. Or as I like to call it, a guitarmony. So I use a bit more of a mellower sound. It's a bit further back in the mix, but it just really thickens it up at the end and gives it a thickness and a sparkle that you wouldn't otherwise get. All these drums are straight out of Superior Drummer. All right, looks like I may have adjusted it a bit. All right, so this is my Gregor default sound, Gregor default, where I've got the New York avatar, but then I've added some samples to the kick and snare from my good friend Cosmo. All right, next section of the song, let's take a look. So that section is kind of, if there was vocals to this song, that would be the riff section. So I've started with like a chorus type thing with a lead guitar roaring through it, and then this is the everybody jump, clap your hands, bang your head part. And then in the guitar, it's quite simple. It's quite chordy, quite chordal, but a bit of a riff in there. So you notice I put a slide in that riff, in the guitar riff. When you're doing stuff inside the box, you're working very quickly and using quite a lot of software instruments. So the drums and the keys are software, the guitar and bass I've played. If it's too precise, it sounds fake. So adding things like slides and expression and all that sort of stuff, which as a musician you should do anyway, but obviously when you're playing and composing and mixing and doing it all at once, it can be harder to focus on the performance. But things like that, let it sound more real, let it feel like people are playing rather than a computer's playing. All right, this next part of the song, this is kind of the verse part. All right, so those are the chords. We've got an A, E, G, C. So the E, G, C is that riff coming back. So if there was a vocal, it'd be the vocal wouldn't be singing over this riff. It's kind of a call and response between the band and the singer kind of vibe. That's what I was going for. I put an A in here for a couple of reasons. One is I don't just want to sit in E all day. I wanted it to move somewhere else for a bit. And it would normally be, diatonically, it would be an A minor. But I've gone for an A major just to give it a bit of a different color. So that's outside the key. And here, instead of our synth playing, I've got a piano from Easy Keys. Just to give it a different vibe. I felt like the synth was very full, and the piano has more attack and kind of jumps forward and back a lot more without clouding it. The drums are more simple as well. What's the bass doing? The bass is not doing anything crazy. It's very basic. Again, very 80s. Not to do too much in a rock band on the bass. It's also very 90s. Wanted to keep it out of the way, leave space for everything else. So that happens twice, and then we've got this pre-chorus section. All right, so this is interesting. Well, at least I think it's interesting. So this is the chorus, but what I've done is I've taken the riff chord progression, played it a little bit more simple on the guitars, on the rhythm guitars, and then added the lead guitar from the start of the song over the top. The reason this works is the chords are the same, they're just in different orders. It's all diatonic. So the original chords were C, D, and E minor over the intro, and then over the riff we've got E minor, G, and C. But they're all in the same key. They're all in the key of E minor. And that lead is also completely diatonic. It doesn't add any notes that aren't in the scale. There's no clashes. Everything is very harmonic. And everything is very harmonic. And a lot of those notes played in the lead are also notes that are within those chords. So it all works really well. We've got the synth running underneath. So that synth, you might notice, is very much on the beat, whereas the guitar and the bass is anticipating a little bit. That interplay actually makes it groove a bit more. So it's only on beat one of the riff where everyone's playing together. Besides that, the keys are a little bit behind. So it gives you this push and pull feeling. So let's have a listen to this chorus. So the lead guitar is a little bit different. It's not as busy because it's a background lead. It would sit behind a vocal. So it's the same theme, but just variation on it. And then there's a few different chords leading us out of this chorus. And then we go into this next section. All right, so this is the same chords as the main riff, but I've played it on acoustic. Actually, I haven't played it on acoustic. I've played it on my Line 6 Variax JTV with the acoustic emulation turned on. I didn't have access to an acoustic when I recorded it, so that's what I used. And it, especially for this kind of music, it's got that chorusy. It's actually on a 12-string emulation, and that again, it's quite this Bon Jovi kind of sound. And then a second acoustic comes in. That's not a 12 string, it's a 6 string. There's this gentle piano running under it. Simple drums. So you can hear once you add the drums, it starts this kind of drum where it's like keeping time on the hi-hat. You feel like it's being pulled back. Before that, at least to my ears, it feels quite gentle. It could be anything. It could be a song in its own right. It could be a gentle song in its own context. But once you add those drums, it's like, okay, I feel like somebody's holding back. Somebody's pulling back on the brakes. And then once you bring that bass in as well, it sounds like the B part on a rock song. The whole band's there. And we're starting to build. Big fill. Back into a chorus. All right, so the end of the song. Lots of drum fills. End of the song, the band's going crazy, the drummer's building up. Obviously, if this was a full song with vocals and all the rest of it, it would be longer than 2 minutes, 20 seconds. It would have more verses than just one. But, all the elements are there. It's ready to grow into a full song one day when inspiration hits. But as it stands, I think it's really fun. Hopefully this was interesting. Hopefully you learned something, or at least enjoyed it, or better yet, both. That would be great. Let me know what you think. In any case, here's my song, F-Hein. Enjoy. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video.
Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, or head over to my Patreon page for more content. Until next time, stay creative and keep creating.